Assalamualaikum dan selamat sejahtera. Anda bersama saya Nabilah Khaleeda dalam Niaga AWANI. Seperti biasa, jam ini kita akan berikan laporan berita bisnes, kewangan dan juga ekonomi. Jadi kita mulakan dengan perkara ini. Job title inflation refers to the practice of companies offering inflated or exaggerated job titles that may not accurately reflect the responsibilities, seniority or even salary of the position. In 2023, there was a notable surge in the inflation of job titles among employers in Malaysia, with 55% increase in positions with titles such as Vice President and 25% increase for the director titles for jobs intended for professionals with 2 years of experience. While commonly employed to attract and retain talent, these endeavors often yield modest results and could potentially generate challenges for both employers and employees. And these are among the observations and insights from Robert Walters Malaysia on the trend of job title inflation. So to discuss further, joining me in the studio is its country manager, Irene Tan. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me, Nabilah.
Thank you for joining us in the studio. And perhaps firstly, we could start with, can you provide examples from industries and also the job title specifically that is, can we say job title inflation, especially in Malaysia?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Good morning, everyone. I think this is back in a few years ago when startup and e-commerce industry was booming. A lot of startup company, SME and growing companies, they were using job titles to attract and entice talent to join companies. And the main reason why they do that, right, is because they were at the booming phase, they're growing and trying to establish the business from scratch. In order for them to attract talent, they create big titles such as VP, directors to attract talent. So which is why when you were talking about the percentage and data earlier on, we saw a huge increase in titles such as VP, 55% increase, and director positions, 25% increase. So this is very prevalent, especially in the e-commerce industries. Secondly, we also see this situation quite common in for client servicing and frontliner role, such as sales roles, relationship manager, client service role. So for example, give you an example, right? In the fast-moving consumer goods industry, for employees that are actually within 2 years of working experience, even though they don't have any managerial experience just yet, they are called a key account manager.
Okay.
And the reason why companies sometimes like to use this inflated title is to increase confidence to external stakeholders, customers and partners, to give them confidence that they're actually dealing with someone that is an expert, senior in the role. And when you have such a big title, right, that gives confidence to the customers.
But can they actually manage their job descriptions? Like, how will this job inflation, title inflation, will affect the whole internal organizations and perhaps contribute to the whole overall talent negotiations?
Yeah.
Will they impact the communication, morals? What do you think about that?
Yeah. So it's a combination. The good thing that I spoke about earlier is that it definitely helps to attract and entice talent. And secondly, it helps to increase loyalty and retention, because when you have multiple positions like that for you to chase for, even though sometimes you don't give employees increment, that gives them a goal to chase for in terms of job title. That will help increase loyalty and retention. Having said that, the downside and negative consequences of doing job title inflation is that when you are doing that, right, that will cause misalignment in expectation between the actual job title, the job title itself and the actual job responsibilities, which means sometimes employees will find it hard for them to gain actual experience to perform the job. That will, in the long run, will affect their career progression, which we can elaborate in details later. And in regards to collaboration and communication that you were asking earlier, sometimes it can cause resentment and inequality among employees, because they will be saying things like, hey, how come you get such an inflated title and I don't?
Yes, like this is not what I signed up for.
Correct, correct. Or for example, I'll give you an example of like a director of sales role. When the person signed up for the role, they would expect a director of sales role to be strategic. But once they take on the role, they realize that, hey, this is a very routine and executional role, which that obviously caused some a dent in their morale and job satisfaction, because what they sign up for and what the title they're carrying is actually different and misaligned.
And the importance of job titles to professionals is to strategize and for hiring managers as well, and to employ, like you said just now, to entice and also to retain the talent. But how can this affect, I would say, long-term career of the employers? Like you said just now, they signed up for a role that's they think that can match what they desire, but when they enroll to the position, it's different. So how can it affects to their career development?
It's probably most likely going to hinder their career progression. So even though they're carrying big title, but if they're carrying big title and elevated title without the actual experience to perform the job, that will hinder their career progression and growth in the long run. So I think it's very important for talent and employees, while putting on a big badge and big title, right, that they also focus on upskilling and reskilling themselves so that they also have the actual skill set, capabilities to perform the job. Yeah. And also we have to be very mindful that sometimes when you have a big title on the badge, right, it will create a sense of a sense of entitlement and ego, and make them have a sense of, or perceive that they have the authority to perform the job when they don't. So back to the point that I spoke about earlier, constantly have to focus on L&D, continuous learning and training, so that they upskill and their actual skill set actually match the title that they carry.
But based on your answer, there's actually pros and cons of it.
Yeah.
But if we look at the percentage of the successfulness of this job title inflation, based on your research, Robert Walters, what can you say? Organization prefers to use these inflated job titles, or they don't?
It's actually a mixed bag. Most of them have tried, but also a portion of them say that have not tried yet because they have not seen actual result. So I would say that it's a mixed bag. And also it very much depends on the industry. I know that it's very prevalent in startup and e-commerce industries, but for certain industries that are a little bit more highly regulated, they probably would be less inclined to be using job title inflation to attract talent, because they have to follow very proper and strict guidelines of the organization.
Okay, let's say for an organization that uses this job title inflation to attract and also retain employers, what regulatory or ethical considerations that they should be on the lookout, or perhaps there should be policies on this, and what should they prepare when they use this strategy?
Okay. We always have to make sure that organizations and employees are adhering to the compliance standard of employment law and any form of labor law, for sure. From a legal perspective, there's no real implication of a job title inflation. Having said that, if the job title inflation involves a misrepresentation of title or credentials or qualification, say a medical doctor, right? They are actually called a medical doctor when they don't have the relevant qualification. That obviously that is a form of a deception. That is deceiving people, deceiving the customers, deceiving the industry about their qualification. That definitely have legal implication. On the ethical consequences note, as much as possible, job title has to reflect the accuracy of their job responsibilities and roles. Because if there isn't, then it will deceive customers, partners, and stakeholders about the actual expertise of this person. So I would always encourage that organization do a regular audit and on the job title to make sure that the job title accurately reflects job scope, and there's clear communication and clear criteria set for each job that they are hiring, so that there is to minimize confusion and discrepancies.
So besides using this strategy, using this job title inflation, how can hiring managers, organizations actually ensure transparency and also fairness when it comes to hiring workers, staff and employees? Besides, I know this is a good strategy to attract all these, especially job seekers on LinkedIn especially. But what are other strategies, and how can we maintain that fairness and also, what do we say, transparency and also fairness? We
actually did a survey, it's called Salary Survey last year, basically when we conducted a survey with the professionals, we asked them, what is it that matters to you the most when it comes to looking out for a new job? Most of them talk about financial incentives as well as benefits. So in today's world, providing a customized and tailored benefits is incredibly important to customize to their lifestyle. It could be family-friendly benefits. It could be medical or health insurance. And another thing that is very popular right now and is important to a lot of employees is flexible arrangement.
And 4 days of working or perhaps work from home options.
Correct. And employees really enjoy the flexibility of choosing whether they can get to work from home or do hybrid or not. Apart from that, career progression plan is very important also because they want to know clearly what's next for them in their career. What do they need to do in order for them to be promoted or move into a different role? So having a clear career progression plan will be crucial to attract and retain employees.
Also, another thing that we can look at is how do you propose and address the disconnection between inflated job titles and actual job responsibilities? How do you bridge this gap? And what can they do? What can job seekers do to avoid falling into, can we say this as a trap?
Yes. I think if they were to look out for a new job, it's very important that they clarify and ask very clearly in terms of the job scope itself. So when they're doing the interview with the future employer, they need to ask questions such as, who do I report to? Do I have any people management responsibility? Do I have any decision-making or responsibility in this role? And what am I being measured on in terms of KPIs? So with all this clarification, that will help them understand the actual job scope instead of just looking at job title, because job title itself sometimes very misleading. Similarly, if they're within the organization, let's say a boss decided to give them a bigger title, they need to ask similar questions as well.
And we've talked about all these challenges and also the strategies, but looking ahead, what trends do you foresee in the job market, especially in Malaysia and also the countries in the same region? And what strategies should companies adopt to adapt with the foresee or the trends that you foresee in the near future?
The emergence of artificial intelligence is ongoing still, and also it affects recruitment in a positive way. AI does help to screen and assess candidates and streamline recruitment processes. Sometimes AI can even help to craft job advertisement to make sure that they reflect accuracy, that reflect the job title itself. But one thing that I would caution for AI is that there is still a number of risks when it comes to AI because it's still being tested. So I think human oversight is always very important to make sure that we make good use of AI. Secondly, we also observe a trend of skill-first hiring. What it means by skill-first is that we don't hire people just based on credentials or qualifications only.
Okay.
We don't just hire based on years of experience. This is the traditional way of hiring. Moving forward, we see a trend of employers adopting skill-first hiring, meaning they are emphasizing on hiring based on skill set and competency. So it's not about whether they have X, Y, Z, how many years of experience. So it's focusing on assessing their capability and skill set, whether they have adequate skill set to perform the job successfully.
Amazing. And AI is important to look at because it's the new future right now. It's the future. It's something that we talked about a lot right now in Niaga AWANI. And also on this soft skill set based on a job, hiring based on a skill set that's been practiced in AWANI as well. So love to hear that, love to see the future of that. But that was Irinta, the country manager at Robert Walters. And you can find this whole discussion in all of our astroawani.com and all of our social media platform. And we'll go for a short break. We'll be right back.
So, are you ready?
Masa indah bersama Astro.
Welcome, bro. Welcome.
Kita raikannya bersama-sama.
Love this.
Syukur ya Allah.
Yay!
Aku perempuan.
Masa untuk alami pelbagai perasaan.
Tenang is good.
Masa untuk keterujaan luar biasa. Masa untuk semangat beraya.
Ada tu paling ramai artis dan influencer 50 orang.
Wow.
Sherina Show.
Pastikan Raya.
Oh, korang seronok,
Masa untuk bergelak ketawa.
Di panggung saya.
Dan luangkan masa menyaksikan konsert-konsert eksklusif. Masa anugerah terindah bersama kami di Astro. Salam Aidilfitri. Maaf zahir dan batin.
Seterusnya, peminjam Perbadanan Tabung Pendidikan Tinggi Nasional atau PTPTN digesa merebut peluang insentif diskaun bayaran balik pinjaman.
Fenomena equinox menjadikan bumi dan matahari berada pada jarak paling dekat dalam sistem solar.
Malaysia berjaya membanteras jenayah berkaitan dadah bernilai RM990 juta sejak 2019.
Jangan meletakkan harapan tinggi berhubung soal mencari jawapan pesawat Malaysia Airlines MH370 yang hilang 10 tahun lepas.
Asia tumpuan utama dunia. Dengan ekonomi yang semakin rancak, pembangunan lestari dan tenaga boleh diperbaharui, apakah pula impak kecerdasan buatan AI dalam perkembangan teknologi dan masa depan pekerjaan? Kami mendalami setiap berita dan cerita. Saksikan diskusi, dialog dan laporan khas di Agenda AWANI Asia bersama koresponden khas kami setiap Sabtu 9 malam di semua platform Astro AWANI.
Bertemu kembali. Kementerian Pelaburan, Perdagangan dan Industri yakin pelaksanaan subsidi bersasar tidak akan memberi kesan kepada pelaburan asing. Menterinya Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz berkata, lazimnya pelabur akan melabur untuk jangka panjang selepas mengkaji polisi yang konsisten.
Fokus bagi pelabur kita untuk melihat bagaimana dasar-dasar negara, dasar polisi-polisi negara, kalau konsisten mereka akan melabur. Dari segi kos, kita masih lagi rendah ya berbanding dengan negara-negara lain kerana mereka ni kebanyakan syarikat ni tidak dapat pun subsidi yang disebut secara bersasar ya, dan oleh itu walaupun subsidi itu ditarik untuk syarikat-syarikat besar ni, mereka tak juga pelabur-pelabur, dia akan bandingkan negara kita dengan negara yang lain lah. Dan negara kita ni memang masih lagi atraktif lah dari segi kosnya.
Beliau ditemui selepas majlis Ihya Ramadan dan Iftar Perdana di Masjid Jami' Al-Ansar Fekra Cangkat Lada, Kampung Gajah Perak pada Ahad. Pada 24 Mac lalu, Menteri Ekonomi Rafizi Ramli berkata kerajaan dijangka mempertimbangkan pemberian subsidi bersasar dalam bentuk pindahan tunai secara bulanan. Ia kali pertama ditawarkan kepada rakyat berbanding sebelum ini, subsidi kerajaan diserap terus ke dalam harga barangan yang dinikmati semua pengguna tanpa mengira tahap pendapatan serta status kerakyatan termasuk rakyat asing.
Sabtu lalu, Perdana Menteri Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim berkata, Malaysia perlu memiliki dasar pelaburan yang bertanggungjawab dan jelas bagi menarik kemasukan pelabur asing. Katanya ketika beliau melakukan lawatan di Jerman, ramai pelabur mahu penjelasan berkaitan dasar negara. Beliau turut mengambil contoh bagaimana dasar yang kelas di Sarawak berkait peralihan tenaga berjaya menarik masuk pelaburan. Justru apa rencah yang perlu kita ada untuk menarik masuk pelaburan asing berkualiti ini? Jadi bersama kita di talian adalah Pengurus Dana Wahid Malaysia Kamal Mustawazal. Selamat pagi.
Pagi.
Baik Kamal, kita sudah ada dasar pelaburan kebangsaan dan juga aspirasi pelaburan kebangsaan. Jadi bagaimana kedua dasar ini kita boleh giatkan untuk menarik masuk lebih pelaburan?
Jadi bagi saya memang seperti yang Nabilah mention, dasar pelaburan negara dan juga aspirasi pelaburan nasional itu sudah ada. Jadi ianya bagi saya, kalau saya lihat memang sudah ada intipati-intipati yang lebih bersasar untuk bagaimana kita mahu menarik pelaburan asing secara khusus. Jadi langkah seterusnya probably boleh diambil adalah dari segi pengaktifan dan juga pelaksanaan, di mana agensi-agensi kerajaan perlu memainkan peranan penting dalam mempromosikan NIP dan NIA ini, jadi menerusi perkara seperti pelepasan cukai, insentif, dan juga perlu ada streamline dari segi proses bagi memudahkan pendaftaran dan kelulusan dari segi pelaburan itu sendiri. Di samping itu perlu ada sokongan juga dari segi infrastruktur dan juga kemudahan pelaburan bagi menghubungkan pelabur dengan bakal rakan kongsi dan sumber domestik. Dan juga seperti yang saya cakapkan pada awal tadi, fokus kepada sektor khusus. Jadi NIP dan NIA ini memang sudah pun mengenal pasti sektor-sektor keutamaan, jadi terus perlu dipergiatkan lagi lah usaha untuk mempromosikan sektor-sektor khusus ini.
Seperti yang Kamal katakan tadi, kita perlukan sinergi antara dua dasar dan juga polisi ini, dan antara lain adalah sokongan kerajaan dan seterusnya ialah fokus kepada sektor-sektor khusus saja. Jadi, tapi apakah ruang penambahbaikan yang boleh kita laksanakan? Contohnya kalau kita ambil kira kelebihan yang kita miliki, especially dalam aspek electrical dan elektronik E&E. Jadi bagaimana perkara ini boleh kita perkasa sebagai naratif bagi menarik pelaburan kita?
Jadi kalau kita lihat memang sememangnya kita ada competitive advantage atau kelebihan daya saing dari segi sektor E&E itu sendiri. Jadi apa yang perlu kita lakukan adalah lebih untuk mempamerkan bahawa kita mempunyai ekosistem atau value chain yang telus, yang komplit bagi menarik minat para pelabur asing. Di samping itu kita perlu melakukan fokus kepada inovasi yang berterusan dengan menekankan sokongan kerajaan untuk penyelidikan dan juga pembangunan dalam E&E bagi menarik syarikat untuk terus melabur dalam jangka masa panjang. Selain daripada itu, dalam memperkasakan macam sektor seperti E&E itu sendiri, perlu ada juga pembangunan tenaga kerja mahir yang berterusan, di mana pelaburan dalam program yang mewujudkan kumpulan bakat bagi memenuhi keperluan sektor E&E itu yang sentiasa berkembang. Dan bagi saya yang terakhir mungkin boleh juga dimasukkan adalah integrasi sustainability atau kemampanan itu sendiri. Jadi di sini Malaysia perlu menyerlahkan komitmen terhadap amalan sustainability dalam sektor ini, yang mana saya rasa akan mampu menarik lagi lebih minat para pelabur, terutamanya mereka yang fokus kepada ESG itu.
Jadi selain sektor elektronik dan elektrikal yang E&E tadi, apa lagi sektor baharu yang mungkin boleh kita jangka ataupun boleh kita angkat sebagai naratif pelaburan kita bergerak ke hadapan, dan apakah strategi terbaik untuk kita pastikan daya tahan sektor ini untuk kita menarik lagi ramai pelabur?
Jadi bagi saya, kita juga perlu lihat pada trend yang sedang berlaku di seantero dunia itu sendiri. Jadi macam sektor-sektor seperti ekonomi digital, di mana kita boleh terus mempromosikan Malaysia sebagai hub untuk inovasi digital, di samping dalam menyasarkan syarikat-syarikat dalam e-commerce, fintech dan juga macam trend sekarang iaitu kecerdasan buatan atau AI. Selain daripada itu, sememangnya teknologi hijau merupakan salah satu fokus sektor sebagai naratif pelaburan berkaitan dengan tenaga boleh diperbaharui, dan juga manufacturing dalam pembuatan sektor hijau itu sendiri perlu diteruskan. Selain daripada itu, pembuatan macam high value manufacturing yang bagi saya terutama dalam sektor-sektor seperti aero angkasa dan juga peranti perubatan. Selain daripada itu, bagi saya kita juga tak boleh macam mengenepikan macam sektor-sektor lama, kerana bila kita lengkapi dia dengan macam teknologi seperti AI, Internet of Things dan juga automation, sektor-sektor lama seperti macam pertanian dan perdagangan juga mampu direvolusikan ke arah yang lebih pintar.
Jadi kalau kita tengok, kita ada contoh negara-negara luar yang mempunyai pelaburan, prestasi pelaburan yang memberangsangkan sebenarnya. Jadi apa yang boleh kita pelajari daripada negara-negara ini dalam membentuk dasar menarik pelaburan khususnya untuk dalam negara serantau?
Jadi sememangnya kalau kita lihat negara serantau terutamanya macam Singapura dan Vietnam, bagi saya antara contoh yang menarik. Kita perlu melakukan satu benchmarking terhadap mereka bagi mengkaji strategi yang mereka lakukan untuk menarik pelaburan. Analisa seperti struktur insentif, sektor sasaran dan juga program pembangunan bakat itu sendiri. Jadi kalau kita lihat macam Singapura itu sendiri, ia mempunyai reputasi sebagai negara yang mempunyai kecekapan dari segi kawal selia, di samping mereka juga streamline business setup yang menjadi tarikan utama bagi pelabur. Jadi Malaysia mungkin boleh belajar dari segi macam mana untuk memudahkan prosedur dan menawarkan garis panduan yang jelas serta insentif-insentif yang lebih bersasar. Manakala macam kalau Vietnam, kita lihat Vietnam berjaya menarik pelaburan terutamanya dalam sektor pembuatan, sebahagiannya disebabkan oleh macam kos buruh yang kompetitif serta zon pelaburan yang macam bebas cukai. Jadi sebenarnya perkara ini adalah sesuatu yang Malaysia itu boleh teroka lah. Tapi bagi saya kita juga perlu ambil kira faktor ASEAN itu sendiri. Jadi perlu ada fokus kepada integrasi ASEAN di mana kita boleh cuba menonjolkan kedudukan Malaysia sebagai macam gateway to ASEAN yang merupakan satu blok yang kian dan semakin berkembang. Jadi ini boleh menjadi faktor yang menariklah untuk syarikat mencari akses kepada pasaran yang bukan sahaja di Malaysia tapi juga serantau.
Dan kita baru saja mengakhiri suku pertama dan memasuki suku kedua. Jadi apa unjuran Kamal untuk dari segi pelaburan untuk Malaysia, untuk suku kedua dan mungkin apa lagi loopholes yang kita jangkakan dan boleh kita perbaiki untuk masa hadapan?
Jadi bagi saya itu macam perkara yang kita boleh perbaiki terutamanya terutama dalam menarik minat pelabur asing adalah bagi memastikan wujud kestabilan politik. Jadi macam seperti yang kita tahu macam sememangnya ketidakstabilan politik memberikan kesan negatif kepada iklim pelaburan dan kalau kita ambil iktibar terhadap beberapa siri ketidakstabilan politik sejak 2018 ianya memang memberikan kesan negatif terhadap sentimen pelabur dan ini diikuti oleh macam impak negatif terhadap aliran keluar asing dan juga pasaran kewangan. Di samping itu macam ketidaktentuan dasar ini sesuatu yang kita perlu avoid. Untuk macam tak boleh terlalu banyak pusingan atau perubahan gerak dalam keputusan dasar. Ini menyukarkan perancangan untuk syarikat-syarikat asing untuk merancang dalam jangka masa panjang. Di samping itu bagi saya perlu ada macam pelibatan proaktif di mana kerajaan sama ada kerajaan atau agensi kerajaan itu sendiri melakukan perbincangan meja bulat untuk mengumpul dialog dan mengumpul maklum balas langsung mengenai untuk memahami keperluan serta kebimbangan oleh para pelabur asing. Itu saja.
Baik Kamal, mungkin yang terakhir secara ringkas 2 minit kita lihat sekarang situasi geopolitik tidak menunjukkan tanda-tanda untuk mereda dan juga kita ada Fed akan diunjurkan akan mengurangkan kadar faedah pada pertengahan tahun nanti. Mungkin bagaimana ini akan mengimpak sistem ataupun pelaburan kita di Malaysia ni?
Jadi Malaysia yang merupakan bagi saya sebuah negara yang kecil berbanding pentas antarabangsa sememangnya akan menerima impak sama ada positif atau negatif dari segi perkembangan geopolitik semasa di samping juga polisi yang diguna pakai oleh Fed itu sendiri. Jadi bagi saya apa yang perlu kita buat adalah cuba untuk foolproof our sector supaya ianya tidak terlalu terkesan daripada perkembangan yang eksternal. Jadi ini boleh dilakukan dengan memastikan value chain domestik itu diteguhkan, diperkuatkan untuk memastikan tak ada disruption dalam supply chain itu sendiri. Di samping itu bagi saya kita mempunyai central bank yang juga proaktif. Jadi sememangnya apabila berlaku sebarang perubahan dasar oleh Fed, our own central bank would be very proactive in terms of macam handling that situation.
Baik, itu merupakan Kamal Mustaza, pengurus Dana Wahid Malaysia. Kita akan rangkumkan semuanya dalam platform digital astroawani.com. Baik, saya akan teruskan dengan ringgit dijangka mengekalkan julat semasanya antara RM4.72 hingga RM4.73 berbanding dolar Amerika Syarikat minggu ini. Ketua Ahli Ekonomi Bank Muamalat Malaysia Berhad Dr. Muhammad Afzanizam Abdul Rashid bagaimanapun berkata berkemungkinan terdapat halangan minggu ini iaitu laporan pekerjaan Amerika dan sentimen perniagaan. Beliau berkata beberapa laporan akan dikeluarkan seperti tinjauan peluang pekerjaan dan perolehan tenaga kerja dan senarai gaji bukan ladang yang dijangka menyederhana kepada 198,000 pada Mac daripada 275,000 pada Februari. Secara ringkasnya, pelabur akan meneliti data-data berkenaan untuk menilai unjuran berkaitan kadar dana rizab persekutuan khususnya masa untuk penurunan kadar. Tambahnya, keadaan sedemikian akan menyokong dolar dengan baik berikutan kalangan pegawai Fed bertegas untuk mengekalkan kadar yang lebih tinggi untuk meredakan inflasi. Bursa Malaysia dijangka diniagakan dalam sentimen berhati-hati minggu ini dengan FTSE Bursa Malaysia KLCI atau FBM KLCI diunjur kekal stabil sehingga pemangkin baharu muncul. Naib Presiden Pendidikan Equity Rakuten Trade Sdn Bhd Tong Pak Ling menjangka indeks petunjuk pasaran diniagakan tidak berubah buat masa ini sehingga adanya gambaran lebih jelas mengenai penurunan kadar faedah Amerika Syarikat. Tambahnya, Wall Street masih berharap bahawa rizab persekutuan akan mula menurunkan kadar faedah utamanya pada Jun. Tong menjangkakan FBM KLCI diniagakan dalam jajaran 1,527 hingga 1,557 minggu ini. Tambahnya, FBM KLCI kekal dalam fasa penstabilan sejak 2 minggu lepas. Justru Rakuten mengekalkan pandangan bahawa indeks petunjuk pasaran stabil dengan kecenderungan meningkat sedikit. Beliau berkata fasa penstabilan ini dijangka berterusan bagi tempoh lebih lama dengan paras sokongan dilihat pada jajaran 1,525 hingga 1,531 diikuti paras sokongan kritikal pada 1,520 dan kemudiannya 1,508. Baik, kita akan berhenti rehat seketika, kembali selepas ini.
Terdapat sedikit kebimbangan berkaitan dengan peningkatan kos sara hidup dan juga bagaimana untuk orang ramai mengimbangi peningkatan kos itu dengan perbelanjaan hari raya nanti. Sepanjang bulan Ramadan nanti, cuaca dijangka panas kering sepanjang 30 hari berkenaan.
Peniaga makanan di Bazar Ramadan dinasihatkan supaya jujur dalam menyediakan makanan, terutama dari sudut kualiti dan penjagaan makanan.
Cabaran bapak-bapak beraya di Singapura.
Welcome Kota Singa.
Cabaran pertama guys, naik basikal tu suruh buat. Kaki dia sakit biar dia rasa. Dinding pun dia nanggup.
Kering gusi.
The challenge untuk hari ini.
Alamak. Kalau Tok Ram dia kena nyanyi, kena nyanyi tau. So what are we doing here? That's the question mark.
Kata minta maaf.
Projek bapak-bapak balik kampung di Astro Warna dan Astro Go.
Welcome back to Niaga AWANI. Continuing on, spearheading a paradigm shift towards sustainable energy, green tech startup Sols Energy, one of the nation's leading home solar installers, introduces its groundbreaking home solar subscription program, a pioneering initiative in Malaysia's solar energy landscape. Founded in 2015, Sols Energy was funded by Petronas Ventures in 2020, and this innovative program marks a significant milestone, offering homeowners a simplified and more accessible pathway to embrace solar energy like never before. So joining us online is its founder and CEO, Raj Redvan Singh. Good morning, Raj.
Good morning, Nabilah.
Amazing. Firstly, can you elaborate on the key features of the home solar subscription program and how it simplifies the process of transitioning to solar energy, especially for Malaysian homeowners?
Sure. Let me just give you a very quick background of how home solar has worked in Malaysia in the past 8 years. So typically, right now, we have 23,000 homes in Malaysia, which makes up slightly less than about 0.5% of our entire population of rooftop homes. And the cost for a smaller system can typically cost about 17,000 ringgit to as much as 40,000 ringgit. Now, this obviously makes it very, very expensive, it's a commitment from homeowners. So this does not make it widely acceptable or widely available to homeowners nationwide. So with that is the very reason we designed the home solar program, which we believe will truly revolutionize and make it so easy for homeowners to adopt solar for their homes in Malaysia.
So what actually inspired you to launch this subscription program, and what impact do you foresee it having on Malaysia's solar energy landscape?
Well, as a sort of education activist myself and an energy activist, I think number one, it's the energy dependence. You know, we typically are using until today what I like to call dirty energy or gray energy, according to the UN. Now, coal plants, you know, or fossil fuels as power is over 150 years now. And yet, you know, we use smartphones, we talk about AI, we use latest devices. So that sort of frustration that all the latest technology we have is powered by very, very old energy is something that really frustrates me. So one is to give homeowners the energy independence from fossil fuels and what I like to call dirty energy, but also the freedom to have a system that does not take on any significant financial commitments and financial burdens, as I'd like to say, on homeowners.
And could you discuss the economic benefits for homeowners participating in the program, such as the fixed tariff rate and also potential savings compared to traditional energy sources, please?
Absolutely. So in Malaysia, typically with TNB, our electricity bill typically increases by about 4% every year, annualized. And what we have designed is a system that is a fixed tariff of 46 cents for the next 20 years. In addition, a fixed maintenance. So we will maintain and look after it for the whole 20 years for you, similar to like think of a Kowei water filter system. So it's the same concept, but ours is for 20 years. And over the span of 20 years, with the TNB, you know, constantly going up about 4% every year, and also inflation, homeowners can expect to save up to over 40% over the 20 years of their total electricity consumption. And this works out at the lower end to about 150,000 to 300,000 ringgit. And we hope with this savings, they can use that for investments in other areas, such as their kids' education, their home renovations, and things like that. So for us, this is why we find it very exciting. And this allows pretty much every Malaysian who has a home with a roof to be able to now go solar.
Raj, how do you ensure the quality and also reliability of this subscription program, especially with regard to the complimentary 20-year solar PV hardware warranty?
Yes. So solar typically has been around for more than 60 years. So I always tell people, you know, if you look at the satellites, most of the satellites are powered by solar panels. You don't have astronauts cleaning the panels every day or every week or every year. Solar panels generally last long. For us, our panels last between 20 to 30 years. We have all the warranties. Sols is also a distributor and technical service partner. So we will have all the tools, all the spare parts. And in fact, we even have the hardware with us at all times. So this allows that we have our own in-house installer team. We're the only solar company with our own in-house installer team. We do not outsource. And we have our own academy, which empowers the young. So with that, and Sols as a group has been around for close to 25 years. And I believe and hope we will continue to be around, especially being backed by Petronas. So yeah, we hope to grow.
And right now, the whole conversation, especially in AWANI, is going towards a greener world, greener Malaysia. So what role does Sols Energy see itself playing in Malaysia's broader sustainability efforts, particularly in achieving the nation's net zero aspirations and reducing carbon footprints?
Yeah, so our beloved Prime Minister PMX has made energy transition together with YB Rafizi as a main focus for Malaysia. We now have a Deputy Prime Minister who is our Minister for Petra, for energy transition. And I think for us as a green tech startup, as a Malaysian-born, Malaysian-owned startup, we believe we will play a key role. We've been doing that for the last 8 years, especially with the residential or the rakyat market. And we believe that we will be able to contribute more innovative solutions to the country, because not just the large corporations and not just on a large scale you have energy transition. I think if we can bring it right back to the home, right, the homeowner, the family setup, I think that to us is what is truly inspiring, because we also will inspire the next generation of leaders and the next generation of children who take over as leaders to make sure that they focus on a more sustainable future.
So how does Soul's Energy plan to scale up the home solar subscription program to reach its goal of transitioning 285,000 Malaysian households to green energy? And perhaps what partnerships or collaborations has Soul's Energy formed to support the implementation and expansion of the program, especially considering its aim to empower B40 communities and indigenous households?
So we started this program, after working with Gentari, a Petronas company, to be able to bring this first version of the home solar program. We hope to work with more energy companies that are looking to make energy transition, more financial institutions, large, because this is a heavy capex investment for investors. So we hope to work with more big ones so that we can expand this program. But more important for us than the finance and the partnerships is the ability to create more green jobs. So we work exclusively with our Sols Foundation, where we train and empower Orang Asli, Orang Asal, and B40 youth to become installers, to become operations, to become logistics of the team. So pretty much our entire deployment is done by the B40. And that is something that we are very excited about, because we enable them to participate in this new economy, in this energy transition. In addition, we also work on different partnerships with different corporates to bring solar to their employees, with developers, with homeowner associations. So really, we welcome anyone who has a home, right from the consumer to organizations that do this for the rakyat.
And perhaps before we end this discussion, looking ahead, what future innovations or initiatives can we expect from Soul's Energy in the realm of sustainable energy solutions, both in Malaysia and beyond? Especially right now, we have the initiative scheme called Solaris. What do you think about that?
So I'll start with Solaris. I think Solaris, that was recently announced by our Deputy Prime Minister, is brilliant, right? Because this incentivizes homeowners to get up to 4,000 ringgit in incentives directly back in their bank account. So I think this is brilliant. It will definitely spur the adoption of solar PV for homeowners. I think for us, we are looking now, so sister company has brought EV chargers for residential homeowners, because the more EV chargers you have, the better. The things that we are also extremely excited about. So we've been doing Pico Solar for energy access for the Orang Asli rural villages in both Semenanjung and also for the Orang Asal villages in Sarawak. And we'll be bringing batteries very soon, electric motorbikes, water filtration systems. And these are things that we are truly passionate about. So as we help, we call it, we power to empower. So we power homeowners in Semenanjung, we power homeowners in the city to empower homeowners in rural villages with the focus on the Orang Asli and Orang Asal of Malaysia.
Okay, that was Raj Redhavan Singh, the founder and also CEO of Soul's Energy. And this whole conversation can be found on our all social media platform and astroawani.com. And we'll go for a short break. We'll be right back.
Sarawak disasar menjadi negeri pengeksport padi menjelang tahun 2030. Sekitar 200 penduduk kampung hampalan singgah mata Pulau Bumbum Sempurna menerima bantuan pemeriksaan kesihatan secara percuma. Seterusnya, Kerajaan Sarawak menyasarkan ekspor pertama gas hidrogen pada tahun 2027.
Sabah Electricity Sdn Bhd SESB mempertukar lebih RM500,000 untuk melaksanakan projek bantuan mesra rakyat BMR.
Assalamualaikum.
Selebriti mana yang datang memeriahkan sepatu Al-Raya?
Oh, handsome hari ni.
You single ke?
Apa beza Hari Raya dengan awak?
Pasti cair dengan ayat pikat mereka.
Hari Raya setahun sekali, tapi rindu ke awak hari setiap masa.
Sepatu reunion Al-Raya 2024. Masa anugerah terindah dari Astro Warna dan Astro Go.
Pasangan kegemaran anda kini kembali dengan watak si Cile ini.
I tak boleh imagine kalau apa-apa jadi kat any of you.
Aisyah hilang.
Aisyah?
Nun semua salah I. Janganlah dulu papakan Aisyah.
Walaupun hubungan kami bermasalah, tapi tak ada siapa pun yang boleh ganti dia.
Kebahagiaan jangan diabaikan. Masa anugerah terindah. Hero seorang Cinderella 2. Ahad 9 malam. Astro Ria dan On Demand.
Bertemu kembali dalam Niaga Awani, FBM KLCI mengakhiri dagangan terakhir Suku Pertama dengan kukuh. Pasaran meningkat 5.47 mata atau 0.36% kepada 1,536.07 selepas bergerak antara paras tertinggi harian 1,542 dan rendah 1,532.03. Pada suku tersebut, indeks itu memperoleh 87.73 mata atau 5.6% daripada 1,454.66 mata pada 29 Disember 2023. Jadi bagi mengulas lanjut, kita bersama dengan pengurus portfolio UOB Kayhian Wealth Advisors, Muhammad Siddiq Jantan. Selamat pagi.
Ya, selamat pagi Nabilah.
Baik Siddiq, sebelum kita melihat prestasi keseluruhan pasaran untuk Suku Pertama 2024, pada 20 Mac yang lalu, Bank Negara Malaysia telah menerbitkan laporan Tinjauan Ekonomi dan juga Monetary 2023. Jika boleh diterangkan secara ringkas, apakah intipati laporan Tinjauan Ekonomi dan juga Monetary 2023 ini? Silakan.
Okey, baik Nabilah. Apa yang boleh saya ringkaskan dari laporan tinjauan ekonomi, Bank Negara merumuskan pertumbuhan ekonomi global menurun sedikit iaitu 3.1% berbanding pada 2022 iaitu 3.5%. Keadaan ini disebabkan oleh dasar monetary yang ketat dan inflasi yang tinggi. Akan tetapi di Malaysia, kesan ini dikurangkan sebahagiannya oleh pertumbuhan ekonomi, pertumbuhan upah yang kukuh dan sokongan pengeluaran dari simpanan yang berlebihan ketika pandemik yang lalu. So bagi ekonomi China, Bank Negara juga ada menyatakan pertumbuhan ekonomi di China kembali kukuh seketika pada awal tahun 2023 berikutan pembukaan semula ekonomi, akan tetapi ianya agak singkat kerana kegiatan ekonomi terjejas akibat kemerosotan pasaran hartanah dan permintaan luaran yang lebih perlahan. Bank Negara juga di dalam laporan turut menyebut tentang prestasi ekonomi di Amerika Syarikat. Bank Negara melihat Amerika Syarikat mendapat manfaat daripada pembelanjaan pengguna yang kukuh dalam pasaran pekerja yang ketat, manakala kawasan Europe mengalami kelembapan disebabkan harga tenaga yang tinggi dan pertumbuhan pendapatan yang lemah. Bank Negara juga melaporkan pertumbuhan perdagangan global merosot sangat ketara. Ini yang lebih penting iaitu dilihat pertumbuhan perdagangan berkurangan daripada 5.2% pada tahun 2022 kepada 0.4% pada tahun 2023. Ini berikutan keadaan permintaan yang lemah, penurunan kitaran teknologi global, pembetulan inventory dan peralihan perbelanjaan spending iaitu spending rotation, kalau saya boleh jelaskan di sini, daripada barangan kepada perkhidmatan yang berterusan. So, baik Nabilah, Bank Negara juga ada mengunjurkan beberapa data ekonomi untuk tahun 2023. Kita boleh gunakan data ini sebagai unjuran ataupun sebagai basis kepada kita punya forecast. So antara data yang diunjurkan oleh Bank Negara, yang pertama pertumbuhan ekonomi pada tahun 2023 adalah dari 4% hingga 5%. Yang kedua, permintaan domestik dijangka meningkat daripada 4.8% kepada 5.4%. Ini dipacu oleh pemulihan penggunaan swasta yang lebih cepat. Lepas tu pembentukan modal tetap meningkat daripada 5% yang mencerminkan prospek lebih kukuh untuk pelaburan swasta. So pertumbuhan ini lebih tinggi disebabkan oleh peningkatan dalam pelaburan struktur dan peralatan mesin yang digunakan untuk memenuhi permintaan yang meningkat. Yang keempat, saya boleh dapat daripada laporan Bank Negara, projek-projek pembangunan dan bidang tumpuan di bawah Pelan Induk Perindustrian Baru iaitu NIMP 2023 dan Pelan Hala 7 Peralihan Tenaga dan Pelan Hala 7 Peralihan Tenaga iaitu NETR dijangka memberi sokongan kepada aktiviti pelaburan. So ini termasuk projek-projek infrastruktur serta pelaburan dalam industri seperti elektrik dan elektronik, kimia, farmaseutika, tenaga boleh perbarui dan juga kenderaan elektrik. Yang kelima, pelaburan swasta dianggap meningkat sebanyak pelaburan swasta dianggap meningkat daripada 4.6% kepada 6.1%, dan ini disebabkan oleh projek pelaburan baru yang sedia ada dan prospek global dan domestik yang lebih baik, serta jumlah pelaburan yang diluruskan sebanyak 330 bilion pada tahun 2023 yang kebanyakannya tertumpu kepada produk E&E dan juga maklumat dan komunikasi. Akan tetapi Bank Negara juga menyatakan prospek pertumbuhan masih tertakluk kepada risiko seperti permintaan luar yang lebih lemah dari yang dijangkakan dan output komoditi serta konflik geopolitik. So sementara itu aktiviti pelancongan serta pelaksanaan projek berjalan dengan lebih cepat akan memberi kelebihan dan mempercepatkan lagi pertumbuhan ekonomi Malaysia. So yang terakhir mengenai dasar monetary, BNM menyatakan bahawa setelah kadar semalaman balik kepada sebelum pandemik iaitu pada 3%, perkembangan pertumbuhan dan juga inflasi dapat membentuk landscape yang sesuai untuk kerajaan melaksanakan dasar-dasar terutama yang telah diumumkan terlebih dahulu iaitu dasar fiskal, memperluaskan dan memperbagaikan bekalan cukai, penyesuaian subsidi terutamanya mengambil kira inflasi bulanan yang rendah dan stabil iaitu pada kadar 1.5% sejak November 2023 hingga Januari 2024. So bagi pihak kami, kami mentafsirkan ini sebagai tanda Bank Negara berkemungkinan akan mengekalkan status quo dalam dasar monetary, mengambil kira pertumbuhan yang lebih kukuh dan risiko ke atas inflasi serta menyokong stabilisasi ringgit. Oleh itu kami mengharapkan BNN akan mengekalkan OPR pada 3% sepanjang tahun ini.
Jadi itu sedikit intipati laporan tinjauan ekonomi dan juga monetary 2023. Tapi apa yang dapat kita simpulkan daripada prestasi pasaran saham untuk 3 bulan pertama ini sepanjang 3 bulan ini, dan juga apakah unjuran ekonomi pada suku kedua untuk 2024 mendatang?
Okey, sekiranya kita boleh lihat prestasi suku pertama pada tahun 2024, pasaran saham Malaysia menunjukkan trend positif. In fact, kalau kita bandingkan dengan FBM KSCI, prestasi FBM KSCI berbanding dengan Jakarta Stock Exchange dan juga Singapore Stock Exchange, even that kalau kita compare dengan Shenzhen Stock Exchange, FBM KSCI berada pada paras yang lebih tinggi berbanding dengan indeks serantau. So ini menunjukkan trend yang positif, dan juga kita lihat pada hujung bulan 3 itu FBM KSCI berakhir pada tahap 1536. Ini mencerminkan pulangan sebanyak 5.6%. So sepanjang suku tersebut, indeks telah mencapai nilai yang tertinggi. Kalau kita tengok dalam bulan Februari, dia mencapai pada 1558, dan ini disokong oleh ekonomi domestik yang kukuh dan pelaksanaan dasar yang jelas. Pemacu utama adalah seperti valuation yang menarik, hasil dividen yang tinggi dan penurunan nilai ringgit telah memberi sedikit kelebihan kepada pasaran saham di Malaysia. So sektor utama yang mendorong pertumbuhan pasaran saham Malaysia pada suku pertama, kalau saya boleh rumuskan, iaitu yang pertama produk elektrik dan elektronik. Dia menyumbang secara ketara terutama dengan permintaan yang meningkat untuk chip yang digunakan dalam kenderaan elektrik, iaitu semua kenderaan EVs, dan juga kita ada kecerdasan buatan AI dan juga teknologi 5G. So yang kedua yang saya boleh kumpulkan di sini, pembinaan dan juga bahan bangunan. So ini disokong oleh peruntukan kerajaan untuk projek infrastruktur termasuk pembinaan dan penyelenggaraan jalan raya, benteng banjir dan juga pembangunan perumahan awam. So selain itu, sektor-sektor lain juga ada menunjukkan peningkatan yang positif, antaranya sektor perbankan, sektor komoditi juga ada menunjukkan peningkatan yang positif. So jika kita lihat daripada area ini semua, apa yang saya boleh nyatakan, nilai ringgit yang rendah memberi sedikit kelebihan kepada pasaran Malaysia, iaitu yang saya boleh katakan nilai ringgit memberi pelabur asing untuk masuk melabur di Malaysia. So kita lihat sepanjang 3 bulan ini, bulan pertama Januari dan juga Februari, pelabur asing menjadi pembeli air bersih, akan tetapi pada bulan Mac kita lihat pelabur asing mula menjual pegangan mereka. So pelabur asing yang meningkat ini menunjukkan keyakinan antarabangsa dalam kestabilan pasaran Malaysia dan prospek pertumbuhannya. So
Itulah
saya
rangkuman prestasi pasaran untuk suku pertama 2024 dan juga unjuran untuk suku kedua. Maaf kita tidak banyak masa, mungkin kita akan jumpa lagi pada masa hadapan. Jadi terima kasih diucapkan kepada Muhammad Siddiq Jantan, pengurus portfolio UOB Kayhian Wealth Advisors. Kita akan berhenti rehat seketika, kembali selepas ini bersama Termina Kausji di Niaga Spotlight.
Cabaran bapak-bapak beraya di Singapura.
Welcome.
Kota Singa.
Cabaran pertama guys. Naik basikal tu suruh buat. Kaki dia sakit biar dia rasa. Dinding pun dia nanggup.
Kering gusi.
The challenge untuk hari ini.
Alamak. Kalau Tok Ram dia kena nyanyi, kena nyanyi tau.
So what are we doing here?
That's the question mark.
Kata minta maaf.
Projek bapak-bapak balik kampung di Astro Warna dan Astro Go.
Kerjasama lebih erat untuk bagaimana memperkuat ASEAN. ASEAN sekarang kan di crossroad, jadi Indonesia dan Malaysia bisa menjadi pilar untuk memperkuat kesatuan dari ASEAN.
So we see a tremendous future for hydrogen to be a part of the decarbonization of the planet. At this point of time, Malaysia and India, and where we have been sort of focusing on developing projects.
Hello and welcome to Niaga Spotlight with me, Termina Kausji. Niaga Spotlight goes to the week in business and future affairs. Market watch, analysis, industries and insights. We've got you covered right here on Niaga Spotlight. Well, this week on Analysis, we're looking at gender balance in boardrooms. Now, of course, to wrap off International Women's Month, we thought it was just timely to look at how Malaysia is faring, in particular when it comes to women's representation in the boardroom. It is also interesting that according to WEF, the World Economic Forum's 2023 report on gender, we actually ranked roughly at about 102 out of 146 countries. So, plenty to be done, and also interestingly enough, it's going to actually take 169 years to close the gender economic gap. So, to discuss all related issues when it comes to representing and having more women in boardrooms in Malaysia, I have the absolute pleasure of joining me in the studios today, Nurul Ain Abdul Latif, who is Executive Chair with PwC Malaysia and also the newly ushered in chairperson for 30% Club Malaysia. Puan Nurul, how are you today? Thank you so much for making time to join us.
Hi, Termina. Nice to be here.
Fantastic. So, Nurul, if we could get started by me, of course, touching upon the fact that you are the newly appointed chair for 30% Club Malaysia. Tell us a little more about your role and what the objectives are for 30% Club when it comes to the rest of the year ahead.
Okay. The 30% Club is a business-led campaign which champions the subject of diversity, equity and inclusion, focusing on gender equality in the boardroom and the C-suite. Our objective is very easy. It is to, try to inspire conversations and discussion about how important gender diversity is in the boardroom, and more so to support coming up with the pipeline for women leaders going forward.
Exactly. So it's all about not only having enough women, but at the same time making sure that we don't stagnate, right?
Yes.
So I was also very interested to note that overall, globally, it's still estimated women hold only roughly about 23% of all board positions. But at the same time, Malaysia-wise, we actually have been doing quite well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The latest statistics which we have shows that for the top 100 PLCs, I think we are doing very well. on a net basis, we have exceeded the threshold of 30%. But it is not the same case for the other 850 PLCs where we are still below. So there is a lot more work to be done. What is interesting statistics, I know there are many numbers and percentages flying around about how well we are doing. But, we took the liberty to look at the top 100 PLCs, and disappointingly, there is only 2 PLCs where CEOs are women, right? That statistics actually show that there is a lot more to go as it relates to senior management level.
Fair enough, because of course, not just senior management, but then comes the next step of actually getting to be on a board.
Yes.
And I think we'll go into deeper details for that, because those are actually some of the requirements that many of our board directorship positions come with, right?
Yep.
Nurul, from there, I think it was interesting that according to data provided by Securities Commission Malaysia, as of 1st January 2024, as you were mentioning, so women hold about 30.9% of board seats for the top 100 PLCs. At the same time, though, we also do have roughly about 20 or so PLCs which have 0 women on their boards at the same time. So I wanted to ask you about this because this is also a topic that has sometimes come up when we look at board membership in general, looking at the pool of available candidates. Just like in Malaysia, we do have plenty of men on, of course, all the boards, but we often see repetitions. So meaning which you will have board members for a certain PLC, but they will be repeatedly seen across the sphere for many other PLCs. Are we seeing that for the landscape when it comes to women on boards?
It's a good thing that there are restrictions in terms of how many boards a director can sit on. But as you mentioned, yes, we still see, the same person sitting on other boards. At the moment, we do see that it's across the board. It's not just a male issue. I think it's also the female where we see them sitting on 2 or 3 boards. And how do we address this issue to have a better pipeline for women leaders or potential female board members going forward?
Exactly. Now, it's also interesting that actually 30% Club's target for 30% women on boards was actually 31st of December 2023. However, it did happen about 6 months ahead of schedule. So what would you say are some of the initiatives 30% Club Malaysia is looking forward to for the next few quarters of the year?
Yeah, I think one, when I first, got appointed as the role, what I realized is that, the 30% Club is instrumental in terms of, number one, garnering the discussion about how important DEI policies are in organizations. We do have about 60 members of the club, and we are continuously advocating more and more organizations to be part of the 30% Club. And I think with these members, the idea is that, we learn from each other. We share with each other what are, our own practices within the organization, so as everyone would, everyone would be able to have, good DEI strategy across all organizations. The other important element of the club is mentoring. So PwC Malaysia have collaborated with the 30% Club for the last 7 years with the board mentoring scheme. I think this is important, so as our women leaders are going to be board ready. So there isn't any point in having the numbers, but the quality is not there. So we want to make sure that they are ready before they get onto boards. There has been 8 cohorts which have been successfully completed, and 106 female leaders have sort of gone through that. And many of them are already sitting on boards.
So I think that is also testament to not just the success of the program, but the fact that you're actually looking at the impacts happening in real time, right? Thank you for that, Nurul. Now, let's go into whether or not gender parity, how is it defined? And yes, we've been talking a lot about 30%. I think this entire month has been filled with such discussions. But at the same time, is 30% a ceiling of sort as well? A glass ceiling in a sense, right?
Yeah, I think there has been a lot of misconception about 30%.
Sure.
But the main objective of the name 30% Club, 30% is not meant to be a quota, nor is it meant to be a ceiling. It's meant to be the tipping point, the floor, I would say, before any underrepresented group, and in this case, gender, where the voice can be heard. So as you mentioned, is 30% enough? It is a start of a journey, right? We have achieved it for the first 100 big PLCs, but we still have 850 more to go to convince. And when we talk about parity, 30% is not the end.
It's not
right?
50%, right?
Yeah, so there's a long way more to go. On top of that, I've also shared the statistics about CEOs or senior, the C-suite. That's also another challenge which I think going forward needs to be addressed. So in PwC, for example, when I first joined PwC more than 25 years ago, there was a handful of female directors and partners.
Right.
I think the DEI culture has always been a strategy of the firm. And, when we want to achieve a target, I think a lot of the processes and the policies need to be in place to be able to achieve that target. And I think that has been what has been happening in PwC. I was a beneficiary of that program where, we are mentored both by female and male allies. And, just to share with you, we had a target of 45% partner admission for female last year.
Right.
We have exceeded that. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, when you have the infrastructure in place, if you have the processes in place, and if the message is from the top, I think that would be able to be successful.
Exactly. And thank you very much for also sharing how your personal experiences within the PwC framework is actually what brought you to where you are today.
Yeah.
Because infrastructure, of course, is ultimately what is really key.
Yeah.
And I think you can set quotas, for example, but if roughly about 800 or so companies are not able really to meet them, we have to question some deeper issues at play, right? From there, Nurul, moving along to asking you about, so the glass ceiling is one point, but at the same time, the glass cliff is also another terminology which has come into parlance. And we have really actually been able to observe this not just globally, but in Malaysia, whereby women, C-suite and executive level figures are brought into place during critical key shift moments, such as, of course, the pandemic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, now that we are in the tail end of all of those things, ever since the late 2022 itself, actually, we've seen a drop-off, and those same women who were in very high-flying positions were then very quickly removed from those positions once the initial crisis was over. Any thoughts on this?
When we talk about senior positions occupied by women during the time of crisis, there's only two possibilities. One, is it the realization that actually female makes better leaders, or the other the other thought is, are we trying to set her up to fail? Yeah, and I hope it is the former.
Hopefully so, yes. Yeah. But the latter also does seem to be somewhat on just below the surface.
Yeah. So to ensure or to make sure that it doesn't happen, to make sure that the latter doesn't happen, I think it is a very long process which we need to think about. We have talked to a few of the women leaders, and I think there are three things which I think is very important. I think the first point is on mentoring and sponsorship. How do you help a woman potential leader to navigate, the complex situations or, situations where there are crises? I think the other point which is very important is to have very good DEI culture within an organization. If the culture is not there, right, making a female a senior person it's like its own crisis on its own.
Yes, setting up for failure, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and I think the third point is, to make sure that, there are programs, there are leadership skills which, which are communicated and which are taught to, any potential women leaders in an organization. I think that infrastructure has to be in place so as they are going to be ready to take on the reign of the organization.
Exactly. And I think we will get into this a little deeper during the next part of the discussion, but also it has been noted by various global surveys that companies that have more than 30% of women on their executive teams, they are significantly more likely to actually financially outperform less gender diverse teams by anywhere between 10 to even 30%. So all of this is actually telling us that there is actually a financial kickback in a sense, or there is a business imperative to ensure better gender balance in the boardrooms, right?
Yeah, so PwC is one very good example.
Fair.
I sit on the senior leadership team, and I think within the team we have 20% who are female members sitting on the team, and I can assure you that the discussions covers all angles, because everyone would have different views of how they decide on crucial issues. I think having dissenting views can be positive, because you would have different insights, which is very key in terms of decision making. If everyone thinks alike, you may not have covered many of the other aspects which is not thought through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's diverse perspectives is one side of it, but those diverse perspectives leading to bolder or even more fiscally sound decisions is another.
Yeah.
I'll end by just saying that another data point shows that there's actually a 48% differential in performance when it comes to the most and the least gender diverse boards.
Yeah.
Right.
As you mentioned, there has been a lot of research, favorable correlation between having a diverse board and performance. One of the key reasons could be, the nature of men and women are different. I think we tend to be a lot more discerning. And, where we talk about
the nuance.
Yeah, where we talk about the issue on ESG, I think the observation is that, where there are diverse thinking, where there are women on boards, there tend to be lesser risk of greenwashing claims, and the risk of closing an eye on unethical issue that reduces, because there are a lot more diverse thinking and consideration.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also a lot more, I would say, just from my judgment, a lot more female experts working in the arena of ESG.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
We take a quick break now. We'll be right back with the rest of the discussion on Niaga Spotlight, focusing on gender balance in boardrooms.
Hai adik-adik, jom belajar cara melintas jalan. Lihat kiri, kanan, kiri sebelum melintas. Membantu pelajar melintas dan pastikan pelajar selamat sampai. Jangan tiru pemanduan seperti ini. Contohi pemanduan dan peraturan dengan berhemah.
Welcome back to Niaga Spotlight. Still with me, Tamina Kausji, and of course I have today Nurul Ain Abdul Latif in the studios with PwC Malaysia, the Executive Chair, speaking about gender balance in boardrooms. So Nurul, moving a little bit deeper into one argument often made against increasing gender diversity on boards is the perceived lack of suitable female candidates or tokenistic appointments, as we say. Now, you did touch briefly upon it, so let's perhaps look at what are some ways to respond to this in a deeper manner.
Yeah. Tokenism is something which we don't believe in. I think it would be an insult if you were told that you are there or you're in that position just because of your gender.
Meritocracy is the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, in any organization, and in particular, I can say that for PwC, it is all based on merit. There is no consideration at all about whether you are male or female, or just because I have a target, I have to promote X number of female. That has not come up at all. I think in terms of organization and board directorship, yes, there is that encouragement. from the regulators as well as institutional investors about meeting those targets. But based on my discussions with many of the NRC members, they want to try to reach that target. But on top of that, it's also based on, whether they are capable or they have the right expertise to be able to contribute to the boards.
Exactly. You should also be, of course, fit for the purpose, right? And I think it goes against saying, yes, perhaps there are some criticisms that it may be tokenistic, but clearly, in general, women often are actually overqualified when they are put in any kind of a role. So from there, going into another issue, which you mentioned before briefly, that only 2 or so were actually female CEOs. How can organizations address gender disparities in promotion rates? Because this also ties in quite deeply with, of course, the fact that we only really talk about work-life balance when it comes to working mothers, not working fathers.
Yeah. In terms of the statistics, it's quite baffling because 50% of our workforce are females.
Yes.
So why is it that it has slipped so much at the end of the journey? And as you mentioned, there are challenges in terms of, the career lifespan of anyone. And, what is important is that an organization need to have the proper infrastructure and policies and culture to ensure that, everyone is included. So the PwC International Women's Day theme of inclusion matters. I think it's very important. Diversity doesn't go anywhere without inclusion, and with inclusion, I think it has shown that women will have the tendency, 2 times the tendency to want to learn new skills, who want to who want to go higher in terms of the organization, right? And I think that's very important when you mention about the challenges. I think we need to cater for challenges at different aspects of life to make sure that there is retention, so as there is enough pipeline at the end of the day. So for example, in PwC, majority of our female employees are in the less than 30% age group. I think that is where people start they start work and they start having families.
Correct.
And I think the challenges are different between that group and the next block, which is the 30 to 40, where they have children growing up, they may have elderly parents to take care of, and the challenges are also very different beyond the 40 years old, right? So at different stages in the career, there are different challenges, and I think it is up to the organization to have initiatives or program to be able to help them overcome those challenges.
Exactly.
Right?
So perhaps to fill those gaps. If I may, another thing which is also being observed due to, of course, Malaysia's natural demographic trends. We are also now an aging nation, meaning which another dimension to care work, which is done primarily again by women, regardless of whether they are homemakers or whether they are professional women. We now, there is also an additional burden of elderly or senior care that is added on. From what you have observed, Nurul, whether within PwC or within other organizations that you've had the privilege of supervising, do we have any kind of infrastructure that can be built upon for this to be more inclusive, so that it's not automatically going to fall upon women while we are still waiting for the services and the care available to be built?
What I'm very clear of is the initiatives by PwC. I think many years ago we already had the foresight in terms of the challenges of our people. I think more than 80% of my employees are at the age of 40 and lesser.
Right, that's a significant proportion.
So, we understand that, it is not just work, and even for myself, I have a family, it's always work and family. And that's where we introduce the flex initiatives in the firm,
right?
Where you can work whenever you want to work, you can work wherever you want to work, obviously with appropriate approvals, taking into account clients' deadlines and requirements, and that gives people some time to be, that leeway to manage between working and sorting out some of their family matters. In terms of the sharing of responsibility of childcare or elderly family care, I think we are also one of the first companies to introduce the 90-day maternity leave and the 30-day paternity leave. And it's not consecutive. You can take it within that 1 year of, the first year of the child. You have your medical checkups to bring to, if the child falls sick. So these are just some of the initiatives which, we try to introduce so as, people can manage their work-life balance. And, it's also a great retention tool, right? As you mentioned, not everyone, every organization would have different challenges and affordability. So for example, I know some of the more established organizations where they have childcare centers or nursery for their employee.
Fair.
For us, maybe it may not be very feasible, and that's why we have, other initiatives to make sure that, some of their challenges can be, we can help with some of the challenges in something which, we can afford.
Exactly. Now, I think definitely what needs to be, really publicized is the fact that you are already offering 30 days paternity, which is significantly higher than the currently mandated 7 days. But of course, that only applies to Semenanjung, Peninsula Malaysia. Thank you for that, Nurul. Now, Nurul, another thing that, let's talk about this. Now, both seats are also often filled via networking, which happens, of course, at the highest levels of the corporate sector. Now, there may or may not be much availability for women who are climbing the corporate ladder to be able to avail themselves of such networking opportunities. What are your thoughts on some alternatives to this to also ensure that talented, hardworking women are not overlooked just because they may not always be available to be present at such networking opportunities, which can be also quite gendered in nature?
So two things which comes into mind.
Sure.
I think just taking on my own journey, as a woman, sometimes the thought is I'll just work and, go back.
Sure.
But as one climbs the career ladder, it has to be more than that. And I think I was quite fortunate that, within PwC, we have this culture where, everyone takes care of each other's back. And I have, I have mentors and male allies who actually bring me to their network and, make the introduction so as, the profile, people know who I am and
That's
what
right.
I do. And I think this is the same platform which the 30% Club, I see that happening. We do have a network of women leaders, and you need to believe me, there are a number of male allies within the 30% Club. And one of the key elements of the board mentoring session is that the mentors are meant to provide access to their network through the mentees, right?
That's right,
So
correct.
that, within the corporate circle, everyone knows that this is an upcoming female leader who is capable and will be considered. Right?
Exactly. And I love the fact that you are actually emphasize the importance of male champions and the huge role, and not only that, but following by example, because that encourages others who may not perhaps have considered this or to actually change their mind about it. Thank you. Now, moving along into discussing another final area. So we are, of course, speaking about women on the boards. But at the same time, what are your thoughts on other ways in which we can ensure that the lower end of the pipeline is being cultivated and that you're having women who are much younger, perhaps even the fresh employees who are in their mid to late 20s, are actually being nurtured in the right way?
I think that it's very important for each organization to have that culture because it cannot just stop at the senior level. I think when you have, policies and initiatives in place, the employees will feel that inclusion, right? And they will be, confident in terms of going forward in their career. I think what is also important, we talk about mentoring, sponsorship, having a role model, would give that confidence that, hey, if someone can make it, I can also make it in future. And one of the key consideration in terms of the talent life cycle, company will have to look at it in a more holistic manner, from in the point of attracting, recruiting, and retention. I think when one knows that we are well taken care within our career, I think that is where the young employees will know that there is a path for me in the organization, and that is where you build your pipeline.
Exactly, correct. And when it comes to diversity, of course, we don't just mean gender, because let's say within the next decade or so, everyone on boards around Malaysia and globally will definitely be of a slightly younger cohort.
Yeah.
So while we have so much of a focus on ensuring that women leaders make their way through, how do we also ensure that we're inculcating an equally sensitized male generation of future leaders?
The tone comes from the top. I think if an organization has a good DEI culture and talk about inclusion, I think then there will be no differentiation between male and female.
Correct.
It is just merit. And I think even for us in PwC, where we deal with a diverse group of people in terms of racial and in terms of gender.
That's right.
We all have to be very sensitive in terms of how we, encourage, different behaviors. A lot of this cannot be made mandatory, but it has to come from the top. It has to be led by example. I just give you an example. It may not be gender, but talking in a language which everyone understands.
Yes.
Right? We can't restrict one from talking in their mother tongue, but the message from the top must be, please speak in a language which everyone understands, so as they don't feel discriminated or excluded in any discussion, especially if it's work. Yeah.
Exactly.
So that culture, that inclusion culture is very important. We can talk about any diversity, gender, racial, or age. Yeah.
Fair.
But inclusion, I think, plays a very key part.
Exactly. Nurul, I have actually, honestly, so much more that we could speak about, but I think that helps draw a really good nutshell about the progress that has been made. Thank you so much for your time and for your incredible work so far.
Thank you, Tamina, for having me here today.
Absolutely. Well, that's all we have time for today. We will, of course, be back next Friday with more business analysis and insights right here on Niaga Spotlight. I'm Tamina Kowski signing off and wishing everyone a productive week ahead.
Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera.